We all love bad Christmas movies, and we know what makes them bad, but why not look at the glass as half full and discuss the good parts of a bad movie? That's what we're going to do today with Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus. Let's find the good parts.
I passed retirement age 3 years ago. This has to be my last Christmas.
Santa's son is taking over. There's just one hitch.
You have to get married.
No wedding bells,
I finally find a guy I like. He thinks he's Santa Claus.
no jingle bells.
Don't you believe in Christmas magic?
Steve Guttenberg, Crystal Bernard in a Hallmark Channel holiday original.
I know this is hard to believe.
Single Santa Seeks Mrs. Claus. Premieres next Saturday at 9 on the Hallmark Channel.
Debuting on the Hallmark Channel in 2004, Santa's single son Nick, played by 80s icon Steve Guttenberg, is preparing to replace his father and become the next Santa on December 26. Before that can happen, he must find or creepily hunt for a wife, or Christmas will cease to be. Ernest, the right-hand elf/man, generates a list of potential wives, but Nick quickly falls for the non-believer Beth, played by Crystal Bernard of Wings and Slumber Party Massacre 2. 2004, Hallmark was not known for their Christmas movies as they are now. What most people would think of as typical Hallmark film would not become a reality until about 5 years later with the start of Countdown to Christmas. The channel would only air about 4 other Christmas movies in 2004, including the films A Boyfriend for Christmas, When Angels Come to Town, Eve's Christmas, and Angel in the Family. Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus stands out as a goofy Christmas movie compared to these films. It's hokey and in times embarrassingly bad. However, there are a few good parts. I hope. On Rotten Tomatoes, Single Santa has no critic reviews, but surprisingly has an audience score of 52%. User Jan D proclaims, "It's one of my favorite Christmas movies." And Lucy K agrees, saying, "This is the best Christmas movie I ever saw." On the extreme opposite though, another user states, "Steve Guttenberg really reminded me of a child molester the whole time," which really ruined the movie for me. Opinions about what makes a movie bad or good can greatly differ, and to help identify the good parts, I'm joined by John and Daniela from Hit or Miss Hallmark Reviews. The couple discusses reviews and determines if a Hallmark film is a hit or miss. They watch all of the Hallmark movies throughout the year, and I was honored to introduce them to this early 2000s gem.
Hi everyone, I'm Daniela.
And I'm John. We're otherwise known as
Hit or Miss Hallmark Movie Reviews.
Big thanks to Christmas aficionado, or Joe, for having us on the show.
Hi John, hi Daniela. When I introduced this movie to you, what were your thoughts?
What's not to like?
Okay, where do we begin with this one? You know, first, both of us had never seen this before, and I don't think we'd even heard of it before.
No, I definitely didn't know that Steve Guttenberg was in a Hallmark Christmas movie.
No. So this is new territory for us, and I think it's safe to say, you know, we have an affinity for Hallmark movies, obviously. We love Hallmark Christmas movies, but I think more specifically, we love Hallmark Christmas movies with magic.
With magic.
Yes, I'm always on board the magic train.
Toot toot!
Yes, and in fact, the more magic, the better. Go big with magic is our motto.
Yeah, and when it comes to a movie about Santa Claus, obviously there's gonna be magic.
Yeah. So needless to say, you know, this had the right amount of magic for us. And like it or hate it, you know, I think we can all agree that overall, it's a very sweet, very charming, just an easy watch. You know, as long as you're okay with getting annoyed with a few little things here and there, I thought it was good. We like Crystal Bernard. We like the Goot. Is that what we're calling him now?
Good. I mean, or just Guttenberg.
Guttenberg. Okay, so, you know, we were looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, Guttenberg is a big draw for me. I love this man since his days as Cadet Mahoney in the Police Academy movies. I even remember watching the movie Cocoon with my parents, probably way too young.
Yeah.
Point is, Steve Guttenberg is at his place in my heart since I was old enough to appreciate film, period.
Nice.
So it's nice to inject him back in this sense. And to chime in on aficionado's comment about Guttenberg coming off as sorta molesty, I actually did get that on the first watch. I thought it was kind of odd, but the second watch, he came off a lot cuter, and I really understood it. Maybe I just kind of became akin with his character.
Yeah,
but
or maybe the initial shock of him being a bit of a creeper
yeah,
wore off a little bit.
He was just too nice, right? Where it seems like, okay,
yeah.
well, this guy's got to be up to something.
I thought it was exactly what it should be. It was a little bit fun, a little bit silly, a little bit cheese.
A whole lot of cheese.
Yeah, and I was actually a little surprised to see quite a few touchy touching moments, especially between Beth and her son, Nick helping Holly with her lines on the sleigh. There was a nice touching moment between them during that commercial.
Yeah.
It was all just very cute.
All very cute.
Yeah.
So let's get into these good parts and see if we all agree.
Thanks for joining me. So let's discuss the good parts of Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus and see if we agree. And because this movie is so bad, I'm just going to continue to drink. Steve Guttenberg and his terrible laugh. Steve Guttenberg was a staple of the 80s. The Police Academy films, Three Men and a Baby, Cocoon, and Short Circuit are just a few of the movies that make him the prominent 80s actor. Then something happened, and we get his take as the Jolly One. Not Kris Kringle, but likely his slow son Nick. Guttenberg created his own take on Santa. Instead of a deep, jolly laugh, we get a contrived attempt at a laugh that he casually says, ho, 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 in an almost musical way. It's terrible, but I guarantee you by the end of the film, you will be mimicking it. Go ahead, try it. It's so bad, it's good.
That laugh. Okay, well, it was definitely infectious. Oh my goodness, there it is again. So yes, we were trying to mimic it halfway through the movie. I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of it, to be honest. I found it a bit annoying.
There's a certain amount of inane conversation, but if the lady laughs at your jokes, that seems to be a good sign.
Definitely didn't sound natural by any means.
No, and you know what? This is another thing for me. On the first watch, I was like, oh my God, that's awkward. And I almost wanted to cut a horror trailer out of it because it was so creepy.
Yes,
But by the second watch, I was like, oh, it's kind of cute. I mean, he's trying. He's not Santa yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't perfected the laugh.
Maybe that's it, right? Yeah. It was unexpected, right? And maybe that counts for something. And whether that's good or bad, I don't know. That's probably subjective, but...
Well, there's no room for subjectivity here on the good parts.
Yes, that's true.
A creepy laugh from the friendly face of Goot isn't enough to turn us away.
No, definitely not.
So we have to agree with you on this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Could this movie be made into a horror film? I mean, let's think about it. Single Santa seeks Mrs. Claus.
Christmas tree, oh Christmas tree, la 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 la.
I stopped believing in Santa when I was 8 years old.
Heidi. So that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna play a little game, okay?
Okay. There's one thing you have to do. You have to get married.
I've been looking for the right woman for a long time. I just haven't found her.
I have made a list of ideal candidates and narrowed it down to the most appropriate.
Let me find the right woman. I'm Santa Claus.
Are you a nutball? Stop it.
Look, you've known me long enough. You've got to believe in me. You've got to trust me.
I finally find a guy I like. It turns out he thinks he's Santa Claus.
You have a child, how old is he or she? And I know who's been naughty or nice. He's been nice. Never met a child I didn't like. You've got to have faith in me, and faith means believing without proof.
What are you looking for?
Someone who feels like the other half of my heart. My soul. May I have this dance? Didn't you believe in Christmas magic?
Yeah, Gutenberg's laugh was a highlight of this film only because it was so bad. Passing on the Santa torch. The legend for years is that Santa is always alive. He lives forever. In the 80s, movies began to explore Santa's life expectancy. Santa Claus the movie proclaimed that he lives forever. That makes him a mythical creature with Christmas power.
I won't live long enough for that.
Both of you will live forever. Like us.
In the 90s, The Santa Claus, starring Tim Allen, came up with the scenario that if Santa dies, anybody become the next Santa by agreeing to the terms of service and putting on the coat. He or she has now sold their life away to the servitude of the North Pole. A number of films, mostly made for TV, began to explore the idea that Santa passes the torch down to his children. In 2002, 2 films explored this idea. Mr. Saint Nick with Kelsey Grammer, who wants to live the good life, in the tropics, and Nick Jr. features Santa's son Kris Kringle Jr., who gets arrested while delivering presents. If you're going to go look for these films, don't. They're absolutely terrible, especially the Kelsey Grammer film. However, they did explore the idea that Santa passes on the torch to his son, or later in some films, daughter. Single Santa came about shortly after these 2 films. John Wheeler, who plays Santa, Nick's father, we really don't know if he's Kris Kringle, since he's only referred to as Santa, but he is retiring and the magic will be transferred to Nick. Passing the torch to the family member is an interesting approach that tries to give it some reality. I don't hate the concept. I think it's actually a good part of the film. It's an interesting storyline at least. But what I'm not sold is that Nick is going to become Santa. Do we really want that?
I'm usually not this smooth.
What do you think?
Okay, passing on the Santa torch. We're fans of passing down the torch trope, I would say. In fact, I really like it when the whole family's involved. And I think no movie did it better than Fred Claus. Okay?
Well, I know
That may be controversial, but I'm gonna stick by that.
I know that Joe will definitely disagree with you on that.
That's okay, that's okay. That's what we're here to discuss things, talk things out. We're all about opinions here, and that's good. We agree with you. It definitely brings a sense of realism to an otherwise whimsical, magical, silly little story, and a little grounding in reality is okay, I also thought it was really nice to see someone like Nick who actually wants to take over the family business. He's not trying to run away from his fate, you can say, all he's worried about is just letting anyone down and doing a really good job, which I thought was sweet.
Being the best Santa he can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a unique spin on the Santa origin story, I found. Like him needing to have a wife before being handed down the reins to the reindeer.
That is different, yeah.
It was odd, but I sort of get it. And who knows how long single Santa could operate without going insane and turning Nightmare Before Christmas. It's like, Santa needs to get laid.
Yeah, I guess.
It almost mimicked like a royal romance plot where finding the right significant other was as important as the coronation of becoming what you're becoming.
Yeah. So yeah, we're definitely gonna agree with Aficionado on this one, for sure.
You brought up Fred Claus. I need to point out that that movie doesn't really pass the torch. It's more of a brother civil war with Fred helping out. However, the trope is agreed upon as good. Passing the torch is an interesting alternative story to the Santa Claus myth. I just can't compare it to Fred Claus. Beth's reaction to Nick's confession. Let's discuss the idea that you're a single woman without a boyfriend, and some guy shows up at your door and tells you he's Santa's son, and that you're a perfect match for him. You're pressured to marry this man, or Christmas will cease to exist. Like the Terminator looking for Sarah or John Connor to stop the resistance to Skynet, Nick Claus is on the hunt for his wife. A huge complaint is that the movie makes this sequence a musical montage of women just slamming the door on him. I want to hear what Nick has to say to these women. Later on in the film, when he tells Beth that he is Santa, it doesn't go well.
I'm Santa Claus.
No, really, go ahead.
I am.
Her reaction is pretty genuine. Realizing she doesn't believe him, his eyes get psycho.
No, baby. Nick, this isn't funny.
I'm not trying to be funny. You believed in me as a pretend Santa. Now you've got to believe in me as the real thing.
What? Are you a nutball?
Beth calls him a nutball. She tries to kick him out, but Nick becomes aggressive. She had given up on relationships and thought she finally found a good guy. Turns out, she fell for a guy who thinks he's Santa Claus. She kicks him out and she breaks down crying. It's a pretty real reaction, but like the Terminator, unfortunately, Nick will be back.
I'll be back.
What do you think? Was he crazy? Was this a good sequence? Should we keep drinking? I'm gonna go. Oh, that's good.
Beth's reaction to Nick's confession. Oh gosh, the montage of the women slamming the door in Nick's face. You know, I was pretty curious about what he was saying to them. They should have at least maybe shown one and then maybe have gone into the montage. If I was directing that scene, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, that does make sense, but when you really think about it, you got the same spiel when he talked to Beth later. I think giving the exact same speech to every woman with zero context is why they were slamming the door in his face.
It's kind of wonderful.
Oh.
I hope you think so.
I will.
Beth,
Go ahead.
I'm Santa Claus.
No, really, go ahead.
I just think it would have been even more awkward showing him say what he says to Beth later on in the movie. Like, how insane would it be if some rosy-cheeked weirdo showed up at your door with an old-school assassin scroll with your name on it,
It
just being
definitely
like,
would be weird.
okay, you have to wed me or Christmas will die forever. It's hilarious and a bit scary, but it absolutely did remind me of the door-to-door Terminator scenes. Yeah. Come with me if you want me to give.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know, I guess. Is that Terminator?
Yeah.
Is that Arnold?
Yeah,
Okay.
Was that not a good Arnold?
It was okay.
Pretty good.
All right.
Hey.
But in terms of Beth's reaction, you know, yes, of course, she would be hurt. She would be shocked. She'd be angry. She'd be confused. All of the emotions. You know, the one time she tries to open up and allow herself to feel something romantic for someone, he ends up being a little cuckoo, as you say, a nutball.
Are you a nutball?
She calls him a nutball,
She
right?
literally calls him a nutball.
Are you a nutball?
You know, she doesn't want to hear about Nick becoming Santa, like, at all. You know, she runs away from him, and yeah, he slams the door quite aggressively in front of her. Yeah, it was a pretty, like, interesting
It was a
scene
weird
there.
scene, but
like,
it also showed his passion, and like, I think on my second watch, I really like took the place of him and like felt how important it was.
Are you a nutball?
But I think her reaction suited who she was in the movie, like someone who had let Christmas go a long time ago, wasn't even interested in dating anymore. Then this random guy shows up and starts being a perfect father figure for her child.
Weird.
And then he drops what seems to be mental illness on her lap. Like,
yeah.
Are you a nutball?
I know, it's intense.
So yeah, when he told her, it was like, that was the proper reaction.
Yeah, definitely. So we are going to agree once again with Joe here, aficionado.
Yeah.
I agree with Daniela. We need to see one of those interactions. And John, that was a terrible Terminator impression. Armin Shimerman as Ernest. The film doesn't reference him as an elf, but Ernest, played by Armin Shimerman, is Santa and Nick's right-hand man. Armin is probably best known as Ferengi bar owner Quark from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I was a huge fan of that series, and the character of Quark was one of the best parts of the show. Unlike Guttenberg, Armin takes the role of Ernest pretty seriously. He's not goofy or put on a silly voice. Sure, Ernest is creeping profiles of women for Nick to locate a suitable Mrs. Claus. In Deep Space Nine, Quark lives by the rules of acquisition, the sacred doctrine upon which all Ferengi society was based. Rule Acquisition 255 states, a wife is a luxury, a smart accountant is a necessity. He keeps the North Pole running. He has a plan to help find Nick a wife, but he's quickly overruled as soon as Nick sets his sight on Beth. Ernest is the smart accountant. And Nick can't be the first single Santa. I mean, have you seen that family? What do you guys think?
Armin Shimerman as Ernest. The small but mighty man himself. Okay, every time I see Armin on screen, he always, for me anyway, commands that scene. You know, my attention always goes right to him. And also, he's just been on like every TV show that has ever existed.
He's got quite the catalog.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Who's the boss? Seinfeld, Nip Tuck.
Star Trek.
Star Trek, of course, yes. And I thought he was looking pretty sharp in his black suit and Christmas tie in this movie, you know? And his little round glasses.
I thought the little round glasses looked like a German spy or
I
something.
liked it. He was trying to be very in control and assert some sort of authority because he is this authoritative figure in the North Pole, right?
Yeah, Santa Dad is too busy ho-ho-hoing.
Well, he always seems to pop up at the most critical moments, always the constant reminder of the task at hand. You know, he's there to remind Nick that Beth might not be the best choice because Beth presents a challenge. You know, she doesn't believe in Santa or Christmas magic. But, you know, Nick has fallen in love with Beth, so Ernest concedes and he starts to kind of coach him in a way on how to woo her. And it's funny because he like approaches courting a woman the same as like a business deal or something, right? Like,
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing with the
interesting twist.
The whole thing with the scroll, like, she's not on the list.
It's funny. It's funny.
It is funny. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to throw a stick in the tropes here. I thought that Armin's performance was a little too serious for the nature of the movie.
But it's a nice foil.
I know, but it's just, like, to me, he felt more like Indiana Jones villain from Raiders of the Lost Ark, or even like the bad guy from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You know?
Really? Oh my gosh.
You know,
but
where he
that's
was
funny
just,
though.
Yeah, but you know, as opposed to like a worried and helpful elf, like
Bob Newhart?
Bob Newhart, yeah, like Bob Newhart was an elf. And it almost kind of reminded me of Michael Caine in A Muppet Christmas Carol, where he's playing his role in a silly movie about puppets, as about as serious as watching a car crash.
I mean, I guess, but I liked the contrast of his character, Nick's character. Everyone in the North Pole's like the opposite of him because he's trying to keep everyone on track. He's, you know, maintaining a schedule for everyone.
I get that. You know what? He just didn't fit the magic role for me. And I guess I was a little late to the game of Star Trek. I never watched Deep Space Nine, so I actually don't know his acting character as well as I do. So on my watch, I think we're gonna have to disagree with the aficionado on this one.
Okay, but can we have a split decision? I agree.
Oh no.
Ernest plays it straight, and that's why it works. So it looks like we kind of agree. Sorry, John, but you're wrong, and clearly Daniela and I are right, but since you disagree, we'll give it a half a point for a good part. They made a sequel. They made a sequel. When I discussed doing this video with you guys, neither of you had seen this movie, and I was so excited about that. But did you know they made a sequel? That's right. 1 year later, in 2005, Hallmark released Meet the Santas, a title clearly influenced by the Ben Stiller Robert De Niro film Meet the Fockers. The film takes place the following year, days before their Christmas wedding. Nick and Beth must introduce her mother to Nick's parents, but not reveal the secret that Nick is the new Santa. Of course, they have to be married before the stroke of midnight or Christmas will be lost forever. Not sure why everything has to happen before Christmas. Like, couldn't they get married in, like, June? Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus is a terrible film, but the reason we are talking about it is that I find it a guilty pleasure. I can say the same thing about Meet the Santas. If anything, this is a worse film that is utterly ridiculous and awesomely bad. Since you haven't seen the movie, I thought I would show you a couple of trailers. Tell me about what your thoughts and what you expect to see. And while you're watching it, I'm going to finish this glass. Cheers.
They made a sequel.
They made a sequel.
They made a sequel. Okay, well, okay, any movie that has a sequel has to be good, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, definitely, we agree with you. This is definitely a guilty pleasure movie. But I don't see guilty pleasures as bad things.
No.
You know, they appeal to something in us at the right place, at the right time. They serve their purpose.
Yeah, and it feels right. And like, this is definitely a guilty pleasure movie. In that breath, I'm going to reserve our response until we watch this trailer.
Yes.
Right now.
Let's do it.
All right, trailer in 3, 2.
What do you do?
What do you do?
Mix in distribution. This Christmas.
You know, right off the bat, one of my nitpickies, first off, for this film was Beth's hair. It was atrocious. I think I made more than one comment out loud about the choppiness, the unevenness. It was like like Edward Scissorhands just like hacked at a bush, and it was her hair.
Yeah, it looked
was
very
not good.
late 90s. I don't care about hairdressing.
And right off the bat here, I am noticing mermaid hair. Big, bouffant, long ponytail. I mean, it's clearly a hairpiece, but...
And Guttenberg has been shorn.
Yeah, shorn. Oh my goodness. They've cleaned up. Let's say they've cleaned up. Right off the bat, we noticed that.
Miss, I'm Santa Claus, remember?
I'm Santa Claus, remember?
He's still got that sweet innocence.
I mean, he's still the good. He's still got that red, like, corduroy suit.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is just a red shirt, no?
Is it? No.
Yeah, those are brown pants.
I'm colorblind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meet the in-laws.
That hair, though.
Wait.
Oh my God.
Okay.
So those are his parents, and they've now become
They're retired.
people of leisure.
I love Christmas in a red Jeep. I mean, I love
They're living life
that.
now. They're living it up. They're living it up.
I get it. I love the hair.
We heard a rumor that somebody's getting married. Named Claus.
He looks like Jerry Garcia.
He does. He totally does. I couldn't put my finger on it. That's who he looks like.
What's in the short tree?
Oh! Make a habit of doing this.
That's her mom. You can tell she's going to be a bit pretentious, a bit snooty.
Steve Guttenberg. Wait, we're getting this laugh here, aren't we?
Oh, gosh. It's there. It's there. We got Ernest.
We're actually gonna be married.
Look, the crushed velvet.
Crushed velvet, red crushed velvet tuxedo for the wedding.
That's proper.
That's nice.
Ernest looking happy.
A Hallmark Channel movie.
Oh, damn.
Did a little jig, little jump.
Christmas.
You know, I feel like we need to watch Meet the Santas.
We definitely will give this a watch. It's everything I expect it to be. Again, I'm not surprised.
Maybe we'll just review it for one of ours.
Maybe, yeah.
Thank you, Joe, for
Thanks,
this
Joe.
gift.
It's a gift. It really is.
Merry Christmas.
I'm glad you think it's a good part, because we're going to have to watch the sequel in the future. Because if you think that Guttenberg had only perfected his laugh in this one, just wait till you see the sequel.
It had Christmas magic. Yes, Christmas magic, you know, suspending logic, embracing the whimsy, and getting away from the stresses of everyday life. That's what I want. When I watch something like Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus, yes, I want a bit of hokiness, cheesiness, silliness. But above all else, I want to be swept away by the idea of Santa Claus. And right off the bat in this movie, you know, we see a cabin in the woods with snow falling outside. We go inside and we see a bunch of elves reading letters to Santa. We meet Santa and Mrs. Claus and Nick, his son. It's all very sweet. You know, I love the little twinkling sounds we hear when Nick performs his like Jedi mind tricks on people.
You mean sled-eye mind tricks?
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
Sleigh, no, it's sleigh, not sled. And of course, you know, reigniting the importance of Santa and what he means to people and what the true meaning of Christmas really is.
Right in the beginning, we see 8-year-old Beth awaken Christmas morning disappointed that Santa could not bring her father back for Christmas. She stopped believing in Santa, and she doesn't have any faith until her son Jake tells her that she has nothing to lose.
If you don't believe in Nick, you get nothing, right?
Right.
So if you do believe in him, you got nothing to lose.
That speech somehow makes her realize her mistake of telling Nick to go away. Beth then writes another letter to Santa asking him to bring her Nick. But it's a quick turn, and no offense to the kid, but his speech is kind of lame. I did enjoy a few times he used Christmas magic, but I'm with John. I think there are more sled-eye mind tricks than Christmas magic, so I'm going to have to disagree. I don't think this is a good part.
This movie felt like a mashup of Elf and Christmas Under Wraps. Elf came out in 2003 and instantly solidified itself as a Christmas classic, arguably one of the best popular mainstream modern Christmas films ever made. There's no doubt that this was a huge influence on Guttenberg's character in Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus. I think there's a childlike innocence in Buddy the Elf that we also see in Nick here. His preference for hot chocolate rather than coffee because of the little marshmallows. How he takes Beth on a play date at the park is similar to how Buddy takes Zooey Deschanel's character on a date in New York, and they run around in the revolving doors. They both have that forever inner child in them and try to bring some of that out in the people they meet. Also, one of the most popular Hallmark Christmas movies ever made is Christmas Under Wraps, where Santa and his workshop of elves are kept secret from the new doctor in town, Candace Cameron Bure, CCB. It reiterated the notion that Santa could be a real person with a family business type enterprise that he hands down to his son. And although we're well aware that this movie came out a decade later, it feels like Single Santa could have been a prototype for arguably the most popular Hallmark Christmas movie of all time. So do you agree with this odd breakdown?
That's a lot to take in, and as much as I hate to say it, I think you're right, John. Buddy the Elf was clearly the inspiration for Steve Guttenberg's performance of Nick. Like Buddy, Nick is childlike. The play date, the hot chocolate, and even the Twister scene, which clearly is a game where most would see that as flirtatious. Nick's just playing a fun board game. Maybe because it's an obvious product placement, but it comes off as kind of childlike. Single Santa Seeks Mrs. Claus is a very early adapter of the Hallmark rom-com. While it's hard to say if Candace Cameron Bure's movie Christmas Under Wraps was inspired by it, I will have to admit there are a few similarities. Yeah, Nick is clearly influenced by Buddy the Elf. While the Goot is nowhere near as innocent or likable as Will Ferrell, I will agree that this mashup critique is a good part.
It has Thomas Calabro.
Ugh.
So, like all children of the 90s, I believe there are certain shows that have imprinted on my soul and have shaped me. And one of those shows was Melrose Place. Yes, love it or hate it, if you know, you know.
Boo.
So Dr. Michael Mancini, aka Thomas Calabro, now, granted, he was not the most likable character on the show, but I always had a little bit of a soft spot for him. He also wasn't the most likable character here as Beth's no-nonsense, money-hungry, work-obsessed boss. But, pushing that aside, I just get excited every time I see anyone from Beverly Hills 90210 or Melrose Place in a Hallmark movie, which happens quite often.
I had to quickly Google who Thomas Calabro was. As the character of Andrew in this movie, he was a money-hungry, work-obsessed boss who I'm surprised they didn't try to play off as an alternative relationship for Beth. At times it felt like he was jealous that Nick was working his Christmas magic, but in the end, he was just the reason Beth needed to get away from her high-demanding job. I never watched Melrose Place, so I have no idea who Dr. Michael Mancini is. But now that you say that name, it did remind me of a great scene in Seinfeld where Jerry is taking a lie detector test to see if he actually watches the show.
Did Jane sleep with Michael again?
Yes! Yes, that stupid idiot! He left her for Kimberly! He slept with her sister! He tricked her into giving him half her business, and then she goes ahead and sleeps with him again! I mean, she's crazy! How could she do something like that? I mean, that Jane, she just makes me so mad!
I'll agree it's a good part, only because I think the actor Thomas Calabro was fine as the antagonist, as Andrew in this film. I mean, it didn't blow me away, and I didn't really know who he was, but now that I do, sure, that's a good part.
It has the awful early 2000s music. Being a musician myself, I can be hypercritical of the music I hear in films, or anywhere else for that matter. For whatever reason, the music in Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus tickled me in a way I couldn't quite place.
I'm disgusted and repulsed and I can't look away.
Until I looked up the composer's credits. Mark Waters has an extensive catalog, including such television hits as Darkwing Duck, Tiny Toon Adventures, Goof Troop, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, 101 Dalmatians, and All Dogs Go to Heaven, the series. He also composed the opening and closing ceremony music for the 1996 Summer Olympics and the 2002 Winter Olympics. Not to mention the 74th Academy Awards that he co-composed with the one and only John Williams. So my composition hat is off to him. He's a saxophone player by trade, which makes my love for the score even more strange, considering saxophone is by far my least favorite instrument. There's this recurring theme that they use in the movie over and over and over. That almost feels like a TV show theme that he rehashed for this movie. It's so cheesy and dumb, but I found myself dancing along whenever it would come on, despite saxophone being the undisputed star in the mix. The non-theme scory bits also worked for me, as a lot of it was based on Christmas music classics, and there's nothing I love more than Christmas music. Also, I'm not sure if he composed this or not, but we can't forget.
The music. Ugh. I mean, I guess it's really bad and cheesy, and it does have a very 90s feel. Looks like his only live action credits is Single Santa and the sequel, Meet the Santas. It makes sense now because I hated the music for this movie, especially the theme that he plays over and over and over again. It feels like it belongs to a cartoon, and maybe not a Christmas movie, but after seeing his credits, it makes sense. But John, I'm going to have to disagree. No offense to Mark Waters, he's done an amazing amount of work in animation, and along with the Olympics and the Academy Awards, but the music feels out of place in the wrong movie. It really does feel like it just belongs to Saved by the Bell.
Hey, Zach. No. Last night at the movies, you went too far.
It's not a good part.
It was written by Pamela Wallace. So this was written by Pamela Wallace, the Academy Award-winning screenwriter for one of my favorite films, which is Witness, starring Harrison Ford. Excellent film, highly recommend. So, due respect to this wonderful writer. And they can't all be Witness. Sometimes you need a more laid back, little silly, a little fluffy, a little hokey.
Okay, I'll do it. But first, you gotta do something for me.
What? We're allowed these movies sometimes as filmmakers and as screenwriters.
I can never fault a writer unless they have had a hand in the execution of their work. Writers often write a script and they have no control over the final result. I would love to hear her opinion on this movie. Did the film accurately portray her vision of Single Santa meets Mrs. Claus? But it is fascinating direction to go from a wonderful movie like Witness to Single Santa Seeks Mrs. Claus. I'm going to agree with Pamela as a good part of this film. I love Witness, but it is confusing how she goes from Witness to Single Santa. So, John and Daniela, I want to thank you for joining this important discussion about the good parts of Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus. Tell us about your channel and where can people find you?
First off, we really want to thank Christmas aficionado Joe for having us on his channel and inviting us to do this really fun review.
We had a great time.
We had a really great time. This was fun.
And if you want to catch us on any other socials, then our YouTube is here.
And our TikTok is here.
Twitter is here.
And Instagram.
And we'll see you soon.
Let's connect.
That's what we agree are the good parts of Single Santa Meets Mrs. Claus. Have a suggestion for a future episode? Leave a comment below. We will see if there are any good parts in the next episode, featuring the terrible Christmas movie, He-Man and She-Ra Christmas Special, the Totally Rad Christmas Podcast. Click on the subscribe button to be alerted when that episode is released if you want to find out. I'm the Christmas aficionado. Remember, stay off the naughty list.
Meanwhile,
We hope everyone is doing fabulous.
Fabulous?
Is that weird to say? I don't know. I don't usually say that, but I don't know.
I think it's just been a minute and your rhythm's off.
My rhythm?
I think I know something that can help. I've got it.
Okay. What is this?
Follow me.
I don't. What is it? Like,
with me. Follow the rhythm.
Okay, and this is gonna help me?
I don't know, it's helping me.
Are you a nutball?